In this video, I'm going to give you 7 strategies that we use to write hyper-personalized, hyper-relevant emails using Clay without spending a single Clay credit. Okay, so before, just to set the stage, as a, if you've been doing outbound, if you're familiar with outreach, you already know that your emails, the more personalized, the more relevant your emails are, the better results you will get. And that is exactly what Clay helps you with. So it helps you find the right companies, helps you find the right people at those companies. And then it also helps you identify triggers by researching their LinkedIn, their website, and other things to create relevant messages to the right people. Now, when I say find the right companies, I don't just mean companies based on employee counts and those basic criteria, but it also helps you filter by the technology they're using, by whether or not they've posted something specific on their blogs, whether or not they've been on the news. Similarly, when it comes to the right people, you're not just looking at people who are a certain title. You can also look at things they are posting on LinkedIn. You can look at whether or not they've been recently promoted to this role. So all of those nuances, finding exactly the companies that need whatever you're selling, finding exactly the people who are going to be in the room when there's a discussion about whatever it is you're selling, and how to create compelling, relevant messages to those people using Clay. And we're going to do this without consuming any Clay credits. All we're going to use is external API keys. You're not going to use any Clay credits. And the reason for this is because each Clay credit is around 1.6 to 3.5 cents for every credit. That's not even an email, that's just a credit. And you can get leads for 1/5, 1/10, even in some cases, like 1/100th of the price that you're paying Clay if you use the right API key providers and if you know how to work your way in a Clay table. I'm going to show you examples using a sample table that I have here. So the first use case, and this is the most common one, is the AI use case, which is, whenever you go to actions, you choose this use AI option. This is what I'm talking about. Now, there are 3 AI tools: image generation, web research, and create or modify content. I'm not going to work with image generation here because for the cold email use case, image generation is not as important. You can use image generation when it comes to LinkedIn messages or outreach on other platforms, but we're going to focus on web research and creating and modifying content. So with the web research use case, this is ClayGen. Again, super popular, super effective, very powerful. However, when you try to use any of these GPT models, look at these costs. You're spending up to 6 credits for each ClayGen run, which is, if you ran this for a table of like this one for 50 rows or for a table with 100 rows, you'd spend 600 credits. And 600 credits are worth, so you'd spend $21 worth of credits for a table with just 100 rows, which is not economical if you want to do outreach at scale, right? So the solution to this is, you can still go to configure, select ClayGen here. And instead of selecting one of these models, Clay Argon, Clay Navigator, Neon, Helium, you just go in here and choose one of these GPT-based models. Now, it's going to show you this API key cost here, but don't worry about it. What we're going to do is we're going to add our own API key so that when we do run a prompt, it's going to cost us significantly less. I'm going to give you an example. So let's just do 4.1 mini here. That costs 1 Clay credit. Now, because I have added my API keys here under the manage account section, it's going to default to using my API key, and I won't have to pay this 1 credit. What this means is that, I'm just going to ask it to find the description for domain, right? Save. And I'm just going to run it for 10 rows. And I'm going to show you the cost. Okay, so it's finding descriptions. And this is costing you, what would have costed you 1 full Clay credit is costing you 0.0011 cents compared to Clay, which would charge you 1 credit, which is 0.035 cents. So instead of paying 3.5 cents, you're paying 1/10 of a cent. So it's already a 10x saving. Right? So that's use case number 1. Use AI whenever you're using ClayGen. Do not use Clay credits. Do not pay through Clay credits. Use your own API keys. The other use case is creating and editing content. And creating and editing content is where you want to use Clay for doing AI actions, but you do not want web access. Right? I'm going to use AI again. Configure. This time you go to create and modify content. And in here, again, it allows you to choose from these models. Each of these models has a cost associated to it. So Clay still wants to charge you 1 cent, but let me show you the magic. So when I'm going to use my own API key, what kind of brand is this one based on, and then I select description. Now, obviously, these are extremely simple prompts as well, but Clay would still charge you a credit. Save and run 10 rows. And now I'm going to show you the cost for this is going to be even lower. So this is what I meant when I said, you could save 100 times. You could do things for 100 times cheap. The cost for running this, if you scroll all the way down, is 0.0027. This would have been a credit, but it's much cheaper here. And you can use even cheaper models like 4.0 mini or 4.1 nano to get this done for an even lower cost. So use AI creating and editing content, and Clayagent, always use your own OpenAI keys. Other use cases for these, if you're using Clayagent, you can research, you can ask it to go to a website like I did here. And instead of obtaining the description, you can ask it to obtain the case studies. You can ask it to obtain the name of their products. You can ask it to obtain the name of their partners or, in companies that they worked with. You can then use that information to classify these leads, find more information about the partners, and you can get as creative as you want to. You can also use these two in combination like we just did. So we use Clayagent to obtain information from the web, and then we use create or modify content to take action on that information and tell us what kind of a brand is this, right? So now I could have made this prompt better to ask it to categorize it within 2 words or something like that, and then that would have made sense. But I'm just trying to do something as quickly as possible so as to not make this video too long. So use AI, biggest cost savings when you stop using Clay credits. Next one is, so the next situation is finding companies and finding people. These two are related, and I'm going to show you. This is again super easy to do. Go to actions, go to find companies. Again, you don't want to use, there you go. So you just apply the filters you want to apply. You get lots of filters. You get lookalikes. So you can find companies similar to another company. This could be your best clients if you're looking for more clients. You can exclude companies, products and services. You also get funding filters here. So lots of filters available. The only limit is you can import as up to 25,000 companies per list, which should be, like in most cases, if you're building a targeted list, you won't need more than that. Similarly, you have the find people option. None of these cost credits. Clay will prompt you to use credits to enrich them further, but you don't have to enrich them if you don't want to, right? So make sure when that screen does show up, you skip paying for it in credits and just get all the values in the table. Let me just do a quick example. This time, let's do it with find contacts. So find contacts is what it calls find people at the company. Find contacts at company. It's going to show you it's going to cost 1 credit per row, but let me give you an example. So I click this, save results in new table. I'm going to apply, let's just find the CEO at all of these companies, or let's just do C-suite at these companies and the company list. So instead of using, you can either use LinkedIn or company domains. I'm just going to use company domain here and preview people. It's going to show you the number of people it can find that meet all the criteria. Shows me 494 results for C-suite at these companies. I'm going to click import to new table, and this is where it prompts you to spend credits. If you select none of these, you can continue for free, right? So I'm going to do that just to show you, but that's how you use. Again, both of these are super powerful. Platforms like Apollo will charge you to give you the same information. Find companies, find people from companies. Apollo and ZoomInfo, that is all they do. They have exactly the same filters, and you can do this within Clay without having to spend a single credit. Next feature is formulas, filter views, and sorting. Now, formulas are super effective. Many things that you are trying to do using AI, you can do them using formulas as well. And this is an example. So this is what the table looks like with all the contacts that we wanted, right? So obviously this list of companies, it was just the biggest companies in the world. So you had lots of C-suites all over the world in this table. You get their LinkedIn, you get their company domain, you get their first name and the last name. And in a little bit, I'm going to show you how to use this information to find high quality emails, better than the ones you get from Apollo and ZoomInfo, using tools that are significantly cost effective, significantly cheaper than whatever else you're paying Apollo or ZoomInfo. But coming back here, so let me show you an example where we use formulas. So I'm going to go here, or you can just add column. This time, let's call it a formula. So formulas can be used for 3 things. 1, conditional. Conditionals that where you only want to execute a column if it meets certain criteria. 2 is extracting information from a block of text, and 3 is normalizing or formatting text, right? So if you want to use a variable in your emails and you want it to be all lowercase, you're going to use formula. If you want to use a company name in your emails and you want to make sure it doesn't have a .com at the end, a .co at the end, or any weird symbols, you're going to use a formula. Now, formulas, they work instantly, so you don't have to wait for them to run like you have to with AI cells. They are instantaneous. And when it comes to extracting information and conditionals, these two are very helpful. So I'm going to give you an example of a conditional execution because the other two are self-explanatory. So let's look at some of these columns. Okay, we have here. So I'm going to execute a formula where, and this is just a super basic example, but I'm going to ask it first, when you're writing a formula, don't try to create a formula yourself. Instead, just use this generate formula button, right? Now, what I'm going to do here is just describe what I want. So let's say I want to find out if the country is US say USD. If it is anything else, say unsupported currency. So I'm just going to describe what I want the formula to do in plain English. I'll click generate formula. It's going to create a formula for me, and it will also show me a preview, right? So in this case, wherever there was no currency, it said unsupported currency. Looks correct. I'm going to click output correct, save formula, and you'll see this populating instantly for the entire column, right? So now this could, again, you could make this more complicated if you wanted to, but in this case, we're using a simple example. So now you see it is working as expected. Now you could also do conditional executions. For example, if we only wanted to get the brand type. Now conditional executions are helpful because we're spending whatever 0.002 cents here. If I wanted to change this to only run if the country was the US, I'm going to go here, scroll all the way to the bottom, click use AI, and then only run if country is US. Generate formula, and now we'll see. So it won't run if the country is empty. It won't run if the country is GB. It will only run if the country is US. Output is correct. Save formula. I'm going to click save, and now you'll see this one should disappear, right? So save and run 10 rows. This one will not run because the country is not US. One condition not met, and the others have been run. So that's conditionals for you. This will help you save costs because now instead of paying for this row as well, which you did not need because it didn't meet your criteria, you don't have to run it. Now this can be very effective if you're using this alongside lead scoring, which is one of the use cases we discussed for using Clayagent. So let's say you only want to reach out to leads with a score greater than 5. Now you can use the conditionals on the score column to do that. The next big thing is the waterfalls. So waterfalls allow you to save costs when it comes to finding people's information or even finding domains, right? Finding companies. Now there's two kinds of waterfalls here, or let's talk about all four actually. So the first kind of waterfall is when you have company names and you want to find the domain for that company. Because in order for you to be able to do any reasonable kind of research, you need the company's domain so that you can then instruct Clayagent to go to the website and collect information. So creating a domain waterfall is super easy. You'll go in here, choose waterfall. Your first provider is going to be Clearbit, or just search for find domain from company name. This one. Right, so this is going to be first. It's free to run. It won't cost you anything. Your output should be the domain and your input will be the company name. Save waterfall step. Now I like to add two actions here because Clearbit doesn't always find everything. So the second action is where you're going to use Clayagent, or you could use Serper if you have a Serper account. I have a Serper account. I will use Serper because Serper is much cheaper than anything else. But you can also, in fact, let me just use Clayagent here so that everyone watching this can use it easily. So now here for the second one, I'm going to use Clayagent. Remember to change the model to something simple like 4.1 nano. This was gonna, it's gonna be super cheap. And now I'm gonna write a prompt here: Google company website. So I just wanted to search the web for company website and return the first URL that you find. That's not one of these. And I'm going to exclude a few URLs. So fb.com, facebook.com, because I don't want these companies' social pages, right? That does not contain one of these phrases. And instead of .coms, I'm just going to say Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Wiki for Wikipedia, and so on and so forth, right? So Google, yeah, and Shopify as well, because I don't want Shopify in here. So this is the prompt, and that's it. In the response, you're gonna get return only the URL as the domain URL and explanation as response. Again, you could use AI to make this prompt sharper. I'm not going to use AI because I want to keep this quick. I want to keep it quick. Say waterfall step. You want to make sure you map this value to the URL. Now you're good to go. This shows you that it will cost you 0.5 credits, but because you're using your own API key, it will not. Save and run 10 rows. So now it's going to find us domains for the first 10 rows here. That's it. We didn't need to because this table already had the domains, but I just wanted to show you how this works, right? So it's going to find me all those domains. And the next waterfall is finding business email addresses. So this is what I meant when I told you, in this table, we have people's first name, last name, full name, and company domain. I like to use, in here, when it comes to finding emails, you can use whatever tools you prefer. My favorites are LeadMagic, Prospeo, Find Email. these three, but you can choose whatever you want. The find email function is going to be super simple. I'm just going to show you with an example using Lead Magic. In most cases, you would want to do a waterfall here as well. So you want to use multiple providers, one after the other, to help you find emails. And you can choose whatever you want to choose from here. Let's just use Lead Magic as an example. So make sure you use your own API key. Otherwise, you're going to end up paying a credit for each email, which is expensive. And you just need to map the full name and the company domain. That's it. And once you do that, Lead Magic will find the URLs for you, find the email addresses for you. So that's the email waterfall. The phone number waterfall works exactly the same. You need to give it the LinkedIn URL and use whatever tool you want. It'll give you the phone numbers. Make sure you use your private API keys here, and the validate emails waterfall is also the same. We like to use Million Verifier and Bounce Band right now. This could change in the future, but that's all you need to do after you get emails from Lead Magic or Find Email or whatever waterfall you created. Validate them, again, using private API keys. Sixth use case, or the sixth strategy, is webhooks and sending and receiving data from other tools. Super powerful if you're trying to do anything advanced. HTTP APIs is Clay's ability to make API calls to external tools. Right, so I'm just going to not save this. Actions, I'm going to show you HTTP API and what it's capable of. So now in here, you can connect basically any API. Right? Any API where you have an API endpoint, you have an API key for them. You can use this to run all kinds of methods. You can use it get, post, push. So if you want to fetch data from somewhere, you can use this. If you want to send this data, send all of this data in this row to maybe your CRM, to your internal database, to Slack, you can do that from here. And like this, just this option, if you're a beginner, you probably won't find a lot of value in this. But if you're an advanced user, the HTTP API is essentially connects Clay to anything and everything all over the internet. Very powerful if you know how to use it right. Receiving webhooks is similar. So, we just talked about sending these leads over to Slack once you find an email. What you could do, and another simple use case is once you find a phone number, Slack it to your SDRs to call that lead. Another thing that you can do is receiving webhooks, which is, let's say, whenever you get a new response to an email sequence on Smart Lead, or whenever there's a new activity in your CRM for a lead, you can push that lead to a Clay table. That is the Clay functionality. So when you create new tables, it allows you to receive webhooks, right? So when I do this, when I create a new table, it allows me to listen to webhooks and use that as a source. So this table will only listen to a webhook URL. Anything sent to this URL will get added to this table, and then you can perform all sorts of enrichment on the data received on that webhook. Super effective. Again, beyond the scope of this video, so I'm not going to get into too much detail here. And then finally, you have lookups. So now once you're good at Clay, once you're creating a bunch of tables everywhere, lookups allow you to find data that you've already enriched in the past and pull that into your current Clay table without spending credits, without even having to spend credits with your API providers, right? So again, this is only effective if you already have a bunch of data across different Clay tables. And these lookups, they accomplish the same thing that lookups in Excel or Google Sheets do, but they are set up differently. So if you're just starting out, focus on the first six. And then once you have a large number of Clay tables within your workspace, that's when you want to be looking at lookups to make sure you're not paying for the same data over and over again. A couple of bonuses that are worth mentioning here, Serper and Zenrows. So when you look at Clayagent is essentially a tool that allows you to scrape information from the web, plus perform research on it or perform AI actions on it, right? Now, Serper and Zenrows, these are two alternatives that allow you to retrieve information from the internet for extremely low costs. So if you're trying to do something at scale, if your table has 20, 30, 40, 50,000 rows, and you want to make sure that running that table is cost effective, instead of using Clayagent, use Serper or use Zenrows to retrieve information from the web, and then combine that with the create or modify content AI use case. It's going to come out to be a lot more cost effective. Bonus number 2 is Apify. Apify is a platform that hosts various scraping solutions. So you can use Apify actors to scrape LinkedIn, Google Ads, Facebook ads, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn jobs, and lots of things. Highly recommend going to apify.com, looking at all the actors they have available here, and figuring out if you see something that fits your use case. So that's all there is to it. With everything that I've covered in this video, I can promise you, I can guarantee that I've covered 90% of your use cases in this video, and you don't have to spend a single credit to accomplish any of this. Now, where do you actually spend your credits? One, if you want to set up a recurring evergreen kind of list where anytime a prospect at a company changes a job, or you want to get alerts or signals, that's number one. Signals are a good place to spend your credits. Number two, if you want to try different providers without actually having to pay for their subscriptions, let's say you want to try a new email provider and you don't want to buy their subscription because it's an annual contract, you can just spend a few credits on Clay to try their emails and see if they are good. Same thing with phone numbers. So when you want to try things, use credits then. If you want information on signals or news or stuff, that if you want your stuff to keep getting updated automatically, pay for it using credits. But other than that, for most people's majority use cases, you don't need to spend Clay credits. You can write super compelling, super personalized emails using Clay without spending a single credit. I hope this was helpful. If you have questions, leave them down below, and I'll see you in the next one.